This is the Hartford Online Radio Network. 21st Century Audio. Delivered. onthehorn.com.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's Tuesday. It's the Hartford Online Radio Network on onthehorn.com. And this is Business Buzz, the show that features hands-on business owners discussing everything and anything that has to do with running a business in the 21st century. Our sponsors are Gateway Financial Group, the accounting firm of Budwitz and Meyerjack, Sherpa Technologies, and CentralCTDental.com, the home of Doctors Camp, Sambor, and Lupini. And I'm Tommy Russo with L&R Productions. Welcome, everybody. Happy New Year. I missed the show last week, so this is my chance to wish you all Happy New Year. We have with us tonight a good friend of mine, Kevin Bishop, from the Boy Scouts of America. And before we get to Kevin, though, I want to read, as most of you know, a quote from the show. And here, if you give me a second, I had it and I just lost it. I don't know.
Is it a quote from our show?
No. I meant a quote for the show.
Are you quoting me again out of context, Tommy?
You are so good.
I really am. This is me vamping so you can find your place.
I've got it, I think. No,
Okay.
I don't have it. How
Okay,
did
I'll
I
just keep
do
talking.
that? Well, one of the quotes that I wanted to use is the one here from the Boy Scouts of America, and that is, be prepared. And also, the slogan is, do a good turn daily. But I have one from Albert Einstein that I think is really noteworthy that came my way today, and here's what it is. I am thankful to all those who said no to me. It's because of them I did it myself. Albert Einstein. Isn't that a great quote?
That's an excellent quote.
Yeah, welcome, Kevin. How are you?
I am fine. It's great to be here.
Yes. So, folks, just so you know who Kevin is, he's a Scout executive with the Housatonic Counsel, which is found in the lower Naugatuck Valley. Kevin, how long you been with the Scouts?
29 and a half years.
So, good portion of your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Better than half your life.
Yep. Thankfully, yes.
So, share with us a little bit what motivated you to cross the threshold and join the Boy Scouts, in an executive capacity.
Well, like many of my colleagues, I happened to join scouting when I was in elementary school, joined Cub Scouts, had a lot of fun with that. Because I was having fun, I stayed in the program, joined Boy Scouts, got to do all sorts of what I thought were pretty cool and neat things. Benefited from the program, and then when I was in college, the local Boy Scout councils were interviewing for executive staff while I was there, and the director of placement referred me to that opportunity, so I went through the interviews, and they thought it would be a fit, so I went to work for the Boy Scouts in early 1982, and here I am.
Now, was that here in the
Great.
state of Connecticut, or were you residing somewhere else at the time?
I was going to college in Massachusetts, and I went to work for the Boy Scouts in upstate New York.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
Are you an Eagle Scout?
I am.
That's one of the things I think every boy should become an Eagle Scout because it is so focused on community and learning. But I don't see that, you always hear like the Girl Scouts. Is there a Eagle Scout for the Girl Scouts or some sort of equivalent?
There is. It's the Gold Award, which is the highest rank in Girl Scouting.
Okay. But it's similar in fashion. I mean, it used to be, I hate to say this, Girl Scouts were very, 1950s women, and you're going to take care of, sewing and baking.
Right.
And has that changed significantly? I know you're from the Boy Scouts, but let me talk to you about something you don't know.
Well, that's okay, because fortunately I do have some friends who are involved with the Girl Scout program, and I can tell you it has evolved quite a bit since those days, and they provide girls with all sorts of opportunities to explore careers and get into technology and do wonderful things. So, in fact, some of the people that work on our Boy Scout summer camp staff are young ladies who are involved with both the Girl Scout program and our venturing program, which is co-ed, obviously.
Wow,
Terrific.
That really is great. So how, in this day and age, we talked a little bit about this before the show began. How are you guys doing with recruitment? And recruitment both on, bringing young scouts in, and for that matter, volunteers, both men and women. How are you finding that? Let's deal with the volunteers first, if you don't mind.
It's always a challenge. The Leave It to Beaver days where dad went to work and mom was at home and mom was what was then known as a den mother, those are in the distant past. The Boy Scouts of America have long recognized that, society has changed, that if there are two adults at home, that they're both probably working. And so we need to accommodate ourselves to those realities. But volunteer leadership is still the backbone of the program. It's the only way that scouting can happen.
So I
when
want to
people
stop
care.
you, and I'm sorry to interrupt. I want to stop you there. Accommodate ourselves. What does that mean? How does that, when the rubber meets the road, what does that accommodation look and feel and sound like?
Well, it used to be that, again, the den leader was the mother, and now it can be it has to be at least an adult who's at least 21 years of age. The leadership used to be one person working throughout the year with a group of children. Now it can be a shared leadership experience to accommodate the realities of modern life.
It's interesting. One of the industries that Brian and I both know a lot about is, radio and TV sales. And a handful of years ago, that's exactly what, and I think for some of the same reasons that you just articulated, Kevin, that's exactly what some of the sales forces did. They wanted to keep people employed, but they would have a list of accounts, and they'd have 2, sometimes even 3 account execs that would share the account responsibilities, and each of them would work part-time and then share the revenues that came from working with these accounts. So it's interesting to hear that the scouts are doing the same thing. A question for you, and I guess a question with an answer wrapped into it. Is it time, the key issue when you're entertaining a volunteer that's considering, working with you folks? Is it the time commitment that scares them the most?
In many ways, yes. Time is an issue, but related to that, they want their investment of time to produce dividends, if you will. And so what they don't have, they'll take the time to work with the kids, but it's the time to prepare to work with the kids, time to ensure that there's a quality program. So that's where councils have to be very flexible and be very supportive so that those leaders have the resources that they need, whether they get it from another volunteer who provides training or from a website or something like that. So when they have a room full of children, that they have a program that accomplishes a purpose.
Now you bring up another question for me. With technology influencing every single industry out there in one way or another, how is technology improving the scouting experience, both as a scout for that matter and for volunteers? I mean, you just referenced training through the web. What are some of the other ways that, the scouts have decided to embrace the wonderful world of technology?
Well, certainly we communicate so much with youth now through websites, because youth think to go to websites before they go anywhere else. And so the Boy Scouts of America nationally has Facebook pages, Twitter pages, and all of those kind of things. And we have resources so that for leaders, there are best practices websites so leaders can share, how to deal with children with ADHD or how to deal with other logistical issues in delivering the program, and volunteers from all over the country will chime in and help them be successful.
And what kind of training, for a guy like yourself, for that matter, how often are you required to increase your skill base, your knowledge base in regards to the position that you hold and want to continue to hold?
Well, there is when a person becomes an executive with the Boy Scouts, there is a series of training courses. The first one is 2 weeks, and then annually there are 1-week refreshers for the first 3 years. And then when they get into people management positions, there is a series of week-long training courses to make sure that they're handling that correctly. And when you're a Scout executive, you go to a couple of seminars each year to ensure that you're current with the policies, the programs of the Boy Scouts of America.
being at the beginning of tax season and actually having dealt with one of my accountants earlier today, the tax laws change regularly. So with you just sharing what goes on with, the wonderful world of scouting, are you finding rules and regulations in a perpetual state of flux, or is it really just a periphery?
Well, we have to make sure that we're compliant to all of the rules and regulations. Some of them that pertain to every Boy Scout Council is an incorporated business and incorporated not-for-profit in the state that they're in. So we have to be compliant with those rules and audit and filing of the proper documents with the state. But the Boy Scouts of America does a nice job of making sure that councils are aware of what's coming at them.
I'm pretty confident that I shared with you, Kevin, at some point in us discussing you joining us on the show this evening, that a high percentage of our audience are business individuals running their own businesses, considering running their own business, or somewhere in between. And you just mentioned that, each and every one of the councils, if you will, is an incorporated business within the state. Tell us a little bit about that. And in some ways, and maybe I'm stretching it here, and if I am, please, challenge me on it. But in some ways, that would make you a business owner, or certainly a person that's highly responsible for the business.
Well, I would be the CEO of a not-for-profit, so we have a board of directors that have the charter from the Boy Scouts of America, and that is filed with in this case, the state of Connecticut. And so I am listed in this case as the CEO, but beyond that, that's the management of our organization. It's the volunteer board of directors that runs the program. I'm the executive officer, so my responsibility is to make sure that the policies are followed out and carried out on a day-to-day basis.
Well, I'm curious though, and you and I had this conversation a few minutes before the show started, that in a previous life of mine and working with a couple nonprofits, an individual, one of the executive directors from a certain one, said to me, not-for-profit doesn't mean no profit. So is that part of your charge, and is that part of your colleagues in other states and other councils' charge, is to make sure that this is a profitably run organization?
Sure. We have a budget that is approved by the executive board every year, and our job is to make sure that we live within that budget, because if we don't, we will be unable to deliver the program or to maintain the camp facilities or support the leaders in a way that they need to be supported. It's important that, again, we are not for profit, but at the same time, we do try to practice good business practices so that we can stay in business.
Now, to help me understand, when you say support the leaders, are those the volunteers that are leading the troops? Is that what you meant by supporting the leaders?
Absolutely.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that was the case. And obviously, in those cases, or maybe I shouldn't use the word obvious, that this is all gratis. I mean, these people are donating their time, and there is nothing that resembles, other than the reward of doing it, anything that resembles a compensation. Is that a fair statement?
That's what makes volunteers so special. They do this out of the goodness of their heart. There is no compensation.
So in this, certainly, especially in the past 3 years and change since the fall of 2008, when the economy, really crashed, and healthy businesses, including major corporations and mom and pop shops all over Main Street America, being challenged to stay in business, keep the doors open. What's it been like, being at the helm of a, not-for-profit organization, obviously the Boy Scouts of America, and being out there relying heavily on donations and volunteerism over the past, almost 3.5 years?
What is required is that we continue to keep our message out there, and that we don't try to lower our sights because of the economy. one of the nice things about scouting is that the one impact of the one aspect of society that really hasn't changed as far as donations go are individuals. They are still contributing.
Really?
Yes, they are. Corporations, depending on how their financial status has been, it's had an impact on them, which has also had an impact on foundation giving. But individuals are still contributing, unless, of course, their employment has been impacted by a corporation situation. But as far as people who are, if people believe in scouting individually, they're still supporting it.
Now, I have no intentions of getting our producer all riled up here in this particular moment, but it reminds me a little bit of what you hear about in certain political campaigns where they're not seeing the donation stream, or at least we're not hearing about it coming from some of the major corporations, but they're getting the $5 and $25 and $50 donations from people literally all over America helping to feather their nest. And I'm hearing that there's something similar going on with or was, at least for a portion of the time, with scouting.
Yes, in many ways that's true, and I guess the best way I can illustrate that is that many people support the United Way, which is tremendously supportive of local Boy Scout councils. But in addition to the allocations from the United Way, many people will designate their donations to specific organizations. And in the case of the Boy Scout Council that I serve as executive director for, our allocations or our donor designations have actually increased in the last few years, because people are saying, hey, I want my money to go to the Boy Scouts.
In this day and age, not to put your feet to the fire, but I guess maybe in a little way I will, people have become increasingly, and I think to an extent justifiably so, skeptical of donating to not-for-profits. Are you running into any of that? Obviously the Boy Scouts of America has a wonderful reputation, but there have been certain issues that have come down the pike that have, certainly challenged that reputation a little bit. What are you running into? Is there flack? Is there concern, from people that would be more inclined to donate, but are maybe a little bit hesitant in this day and age?
Well, most people want to know that their contributions are going to be used and not go to simply administrative costs and things like that. And we've been able to illustrate that that we're using their money wisely based on our audited reports and things like that.
Huh. I want to remind you folks that we have with us this evening Kevin Bishop, who's a Scout executive with the Housatonic Counsel here in Connecticut with the Boy Scouts of America. And if you're not following us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, you darn well should be. So back to what you just shared. Tell us about the staff at your office. How lean and how mean is it?
It's been extremely lean in recent years. We are a small council, so in addition to me, we had a district executive position which provides the direct support to the Cub Scout Packs, Boy Scout troops, and Explorer Post. And we had to eliminate that position because of the economy, and we went without it. And the volunteers stepped up to make sure that the training was available, that the other activities were conducted, that all of the support was there to make sure the programs went forward. But other than that, we have a bookkeeper registrar, and we have a small store where we provide the literature that the leaders need to deliver the program and the badges that the Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts earn when they advance through the scouting program.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about the average day for Kevin Bishop. How many different hats do you wear? And I'll share with you the reason I'm asking this question. As I've mentioned, high percentage of our listenership is indeed business owners, and we've got a couple of them right here in this room, and Brian has one of many hats on right now. When you and I first met this afternoon, I told you I had a crazy off-the-wall day. And part of it is that I went from producer to salesperson to office manager, and just floating from one position to the next. It's part of the issue of running a business, and clearly that's what you're doing. So I think that there are some people out there that might be surprised to hear that someone in your position is, multitasking and, gal Friday, boy Friday, and everything in between.
Oh, sure. For example, tomorrow I have meetings with some community business leaders in the Naugatuck Valley, and as well as some of the elected governmental leaders to help determine our financial plan for 2012 to make sure that our fundraising goals are realistic and to make sure that we've identified the people that can help us achieve those goals. So a big part of my day is trying to reach out to the business community to help recruit the kind of executive board leadership that we need to provide the oversight to our council. The business experience is tremendously valuable. But at the same time, in the back of my car, I have a duffel bag with winter clothes in case I get a call that's saying, something has gone amiss at the camp. A tree has fallen down and taken down the wires and caused a fire or something like that. If I have to go up to the camp, I'm going to go up to the camp.
I know that, because of our friendship, that, there are many weekends that, your time, I guess, in some ways, to articulate it, really wouldn't be your own, that, you're jetting off from one end of the state to the other. So what's the average work week as far as hours goes, Kevin?
It's, well, I try not to think about the number of hours I work in a week, other than to say that scouting, when you if you work for the Boy Scouts because it's a job, then you're never happy. You have to believe in the mission, and so I typically assume that I'll have possibly 3 or 4 evening meetings throughout the course of the work week, and as well as on Saturday, and that's simply because volunteers are available after their work day and on Saturdays, and for the activities that we run for the youth. Those are almost invariably on weekends, whether they be overnight camping activities or simple one-day activities for the younger children.
You just hit upon something that to me, is a little bit of a gong moment. And you talked about the mission and the vision attached to that. And there is such a strong parallel between what you do and what many of our guests, who for the most part have been entrepreneurs, business owners that have startup businesses, or at one point in time were startup businesses and have really migrated to being very successful. But one of the common denominator elements was the vision, the passion, really locking into, this is the mission and this is what I'm going to do and achieve. And would you say that that's consistent? I mean, I get that from you, and I know you fairly well, so I know that you're very passionate about it, but with lots of your, brethren, Scout executives?
I would think so. If you are a product of the program, then certainly you have a strong sense of mission automatically. But the other thing is the scouting program develops character traits in young men, and in the case of venturing young women, that will give them the entrepreneurial skills to be successful in life. Many people say that the skills that entrepreneurs need are right there in scouting.
We're getting near the end of this first half hour. It's flying by, as I told you it would. But I want to explore that a little bit in the next half hour, some of those skills that are developed, again, knowing that a lot of our listeners are indeed entrepreneurs and, hopefully raising children all at the same time. I mentioned earlier that Brian and I have a strong connection to the media industry, and not to pick on them, but the turnover at those companies is nothing short of profound. I mean, I have jokingly said on more than one occasion that there are certain stations in the area that should put turnstiles at their doors, because of people coming and going. Any sense of, I'm curious as to, with the Boy Scouts of America, when someone like yourself comes in, the turnover rate of, Scout executives and administrators, et cetera, once they're in, are they in for a long stay, or is this industry, your industry, seeing the same thing that we see in other industries?
Well, I would say that the turnover is more noticeable in the first 2 years because of the missionary sense of scouting, if you work in the executive side of scouting. Because of that, there are long hours. There are lots of evening meetings. There are lots of weekends. And for a person who's just getting their life established out of college and that sort of thing, and they possibly could be starting a family as well, sometimes those long hours makes it very difficult. But if they make it 3 or 4 years, usually at that point they've been able to reconcile themselves to the schedule, and then they believe in the mission and they go with it.
You know, what's funny is, and again, drawing another parallel, it's not all that unlike starting your own business. I mean, it's really in the first 3 to 5 years that most businesses are either going to make it or they are going to fail. And part of the reason they fail is that the individual that started it didn't realize the commitment and hours alone that it takes to make sure that that business is successful. So there's really a connection. We're going to be wrapping up here in a moment. Again, I want to remind you that we have with us this evening Kevin Bishop, Scout Executive from the Housatonic Council, the Boy Scouts of America here in Connecticut. But before we say bye-bye, I'm going to read a commercial from one of our sponsors, CentralCTDental.com, the home of Doctors Camp, Sam Bohr, and Brian. Are you ready? Lupini.
Lupini!
It sounds like something you would order at an Italian restaurant. I'd like a large plate of lupini, please.
I like the lupini with the marinara, please.
There you go. I'm sure they're really happy that they've had us reading these commercials. Anyway.
He loves that kind of stuff.
Okay, good. I'm glad. Anyway, if you have a serious issue or you're just looking for a routine checkup, there is simply nowhere else to go but CentralCTDental.com. If it can't wait, if it has to be done right now, once again, you need to call these individuals. They're very easy to get to on Plainville. They're located on the Plainville-Farmington line. And if you want to call them, feel free to do that. They'd love to hear from you. 860-747-5761, or make an appointment online at centralconnecticutdental.com. Once again, the home of Doctors Camp, Zambor, and
Lupini!
We'll see you in a couple minutes, folks. Thank you.
Budwitz & Meyerjack PC is a large Connecticut-based CPA firm with offices in Cheshire and Farmington, Connecticut. Large enough to handle engagements of enterprises with annual revenues in excess of $100 million, yet small enough to cater to smaller businesses and individual clients who expect personalized attention from partners and staff. Client service is the cornerstone of our practice. Our clients have a fixed fee for their audit and tax work. What this means to the client is we're approachable. Personal communication and client services make for strong relationships. Budwitz & Meyerjack, certified public accountants.
Hi, this is the Candy Conservative with today's Minute on a Burden for Our Young. There's a reason so many Americans are losing their love of country. It's a simple equation. You love only that in which you invest positive and loving energy. The left has successfully sold us the illusion that the love you feel is based on the love you get. That's bartering and dependency, not love. Love is a choice involving voluntary contribution, not forced participation. As America becomes increasingly characterized by a government of force, our love of country is being murdered. The American dream is founded in partnership, investment, and contribution, not dependency, entitlement, and consumption. Making people pawns to big government assures anger, resentment, and detachment, traits increasingly evident wherever liberalism thrives. Feeling neutral or negative about your native land? Start putting something positive back in, and you'll get reacquainted with that warm, furry red, white, and blue love. I'm Dr. Carl Munpower, and you just spent a minute with an in-love Candid Conservative.
Sandits Travel for business and leisure. We'll take you there. Sandits Travel has been proudly serving Connecticut since 1960. That's over 50 years. And we're ready for another 50 years of superior service. Whether you prefer to come in, call in, or log on, we invite you to explore how efficient, diverse, and fun it is to book through Sandits Travel. Save your money and your time with us. Sandits Travel. We'll take you there.
At home, work, or your favorite coffee shop, if there's a Wi-Fi connection, get on the horn. Hartford's heart and soul. onthehorn.com.
Ooh, I like that piece of music. Who is that, Brian?
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't. Well, let's see if we can find out. That's great playing. Anyway, welcome back, folks. It's Business Buzz again. With us this evening, we have Kevin Bishop, a Scout executive with the Housatonic Counsel, Boy Scouts of America, located right here in Connecticut in the Naugatuck Valley. But before we get back to Kevin, we've got one more commercial we want to read, and that is Deepwater Seafood of Avon. And that would be just for the halibut. That's one of Brian's famous jokes. Are people laughing? I'm sorry, Brian.
You're like going to war with the accordion, you know that?
Thank you. Farmington Valley's freshest seafood is found only at Deepwater Seafood. Where were you, brother?
Point! You're supposed to point!
Okay.
What's the matter for you?
Oh, that's what that arrow is. Okay.
Deep water.
There you go. Deepwater.
Deep water.
Okay. So they're going to work with you and your schedule.
We're also going to work with Tommy on how to read their commercial.
You call ahead, 860-676-9657, or you can even fax in your order, same area code, 677-2281. Deepwater Seafood will set aside your order for pickup after work. They're open Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., and then Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now, I bet you're wondering what's on the menu. Sea scallops, fresh oysters, fish and chips, soup, bisque, chowders, having a party? Well, it's paella for 12 and then some. A salad is all you need, made with spicy chicken, sausage, scallops, shrimps, and just for the halibut. There's only one place in the Farmington Valley that you're going to get the freshest seafood, and that is Deepwater Seafood of Avon. We got through it, Brian. Unscathed. Well, maybe not unscathed. And Kevin, you're hanging in there too. So
too bad they're up for renewal. I wonder if they're going to...
Hey, I apologize, folks. We're Brian and I are on our way there after the show.
We are?
No, I'm joking.
Your treat?
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Little birthday gift to me.
Yeah. Why? Is it your birthday?
Today is.
Is it really?
You knew this.
I didn't know this.
Well, it's fascinating stuff.
Really?
Come on. You read the Facebook. Come on.
I missed it today.
We got 2,200 people in Connecticut yelling at us on our Facebook page, and you didn't notice?
I didn't. I wasn't on Facebook today. That's the
you
truth.
didn't. So you didn't promote the show? Is that what you're telling me? You didn't do your job?
That's exactly what I'm telling you. No, I missed the boat. But happy birthday! How old, Brian?
Slacker.
You're a Capricorn.
I am. I don't know what that means, but
yeah,
yes,
no,
I'm
I
a
am too.
goat.
My birthday was just about a week and a half ago. So we'll give each other birthday hugs later. Anyway, Kevin.
Now back to the Boy Scouts.
Howdy.
Sorry about that.
All right.
Got sidetracked here.
Now
a little
Scout
bit.
talk.
Yeah. First half of the show, we discussed recruitment of volunteers. Let's segue over to recruitment of scouts. You know, what are some of the initiatives that have been around for a long time? And if there are new initiatives that are, you know, involving and leveraging technology or whatever, we'd like to hear what you guys are doing to, you know, get scouts to come in and consider it as a life option for them, at least in the initial stages of their life.
Sure. The best and most effective recruiting tool that we have remains word of mouth. If a boy is in the scouting program and they like it, they tell their friends. If their parents see that their children are benefiting from it, they tell other parents. And that is still today the most effective. Related to that, schools have traditionally been very supportive of scouting because they've recognized that it's not just recreation, that there's a character-based education component to it. And so schools have allowed us to distribute promotional flyers or conduct promotional activities during lunchtime or even other assemblies. But in this day and age, of course, we also rely heavily on technology. Parents, there is a website, beascout.org, and parents can go to that site and put the town that they're looking to find scouting in, and there will be some Google Map pins that will provide the contact information for the local Cub Scout packs, Boy Scout troops, and venture crews.
Huh. So let me ask you a question. I mean, back when I was in school, long time ago, acknowledged, scouting back then, at least with the group of kids that I hung out with, was considered pretty cool. For lack of a better way of articulating it in this moment, what's the cool factor in the 21st century of being a Boy Scout?
Well, the the neat thing about being scouting in the 21st century is that it does provide boys and again young women in the case of venturing with lots of opportunities for adventure or to explore careers or things like that. As we speak, the Boy Scouts of America is developing a national high adventure base in West Virginia that's 10,600 acres, and it will have whitewater rafting, rock climbing, mountain biking, zip lining, and it's adjacent to the New River Gorge National Wild River. So there will be tremendous opportunities for kids to really challenge themselves. As one of the visionaries of this place said, we want to light kids' hair on fire, but of course in a safe way.
So tell us a little bit about you've mentioned a couple times the venturing program. What exactly is that?
Venturing is it is what some people may remember as exploring. Venturing is a co-ed program for high school and early college age young men and young women, 14 through 20 years of age. And the difference between a traditional Boy Scout troop and a venture crew is that, well, first of all, it's co-ed. And these young people will do even more. The youth are directly involved with not only planning activities, but carrying them out. They have a tremendous amount of leadership that is put upon them, and lots of fun.
Is there a prevailing misconception as to what the Boy Scouts are, now in 2012, that keeps kids, and for that matter their parents, from making the decision to at least explore the option?
Well, I think there are probably a couple of misconceptions. One is that for boys who may or may not have joined Cub Scouting, which is for boys in grades 1 through 5, that when they think of Boy Scouting, they may think of it being more of the same arts and crafts kind of program, and it's really not that. Even Cub Scouting involves some camping at an age-appropriate level, but Boy Scouting is definitely more outdoor adventure-based, and then venturing, that goes even beyond that. And the other thing is that many times people will tell me that they don't see Boy Scouts out and around, and the reality is Boy Scouts tend to meet in church basements and camp in the woods. So unless people hang out in church basements in the woods, they may not see scout groups. But I can say that, right down the road from here this evening, there is a scout troop with about 60 boys meeting in a church basement.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. You had referenced earlier in the show, Kevin, that there were certain entrepreneurial skills that are developed, through the Boy Scouts. Share with us a little bit, how you see that unfolding.
Well, sure. One of the, I think is particularly evident in the Boy Scout program. One of the things that happens, boys advance in scouting a couple of different ways. One is they will earn merit badges, they will accomplish achievements to advance, but they also have to hold leadership positions. And in scouting, because there is so much outdoor programming and camping, sometimes it's things as basic as needing to cook a meal as a group. And so you will have a boy who's a 13 or 14-year-old patrol leader of a bunch of 11 and 12-year-olds, and they have to get them to prepare a meal on a kind of 45-degree November night, or January night this time of year. And that's a challenge, because it's not just about being a captain of a sports team, which, that's all well and good, but these boys have to work together if they're going to eat. And, of course, adults are watching over it, but it's still a very meaningful and very real application of leadership for a 14-year-old boy to get other boys to work together to prepare a meal in an edible and appetizing way.
Now, when the show began, Brian, you chimed in pretty quickly and made the statement, and I'm paraphrasing here a bit, that you felt that that every boy should be an Eagle Scout.
Or should at least strive to go through the process. I mean, it's hard to do. It's a commitment, but yeah.
And what motivated that statement on your part?
I think there is a sense of not belonging to your community in today's neighborhoods. I think this idea of play dates and all that kind of stuff, though there's a place for that, it just feels like that you don't really get to know your neighbors as much anymore. And so that sense of belonging or taking care of your fellow citizens doesn't really exist. I don't see that as being part of today's upbringing for kids. So one of the things that I think is really great about the Boy Scouts, and as I'm learning about the Girl Scouts too, is the sense of community action and community effort. The thing that bothers me the most is I think we look to the government or corporations to build that sense of community for us, and that's not where it has to. That's not where it is. Where it is we have to do it. And I think organizations like whether it's the YMCA or the Boy Scouts or something else, or your church or whatever, those things go to building stronger communities, stronger families, stronger kids. And I don't get a sense that that is routine. I think more kids should be involved in things like the Cub Scouts or their church or something like that. It's just a good place to be. It's nice. It's wholesome. You get to learn serious skills, and I applaud all of those efforts.
Absolutely.
And now to disagree.
One simple word. Absolutely. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see, how do I ask this question? Back to the whole concept of, building strong minds, strong bodies. How do you see that? Is there an example or 2 or 10 that you can share with us of kids that you've seen that have come in, that were as willy-nilly as could be and left and are now, living productive adult lives?
Sure, absolutely.
I think that'd be great.
There are lots of ways that happens. One is as basic as most scouts every week at their troop meeting will recite the Scout Oath and the Scout Law, which are, values that we should all live by: trustworthiness, helpfulness, friendliness, kindness. And so they make a commitment to that, and every time they advance in a rank, they kind of review how they're doing on that sort of thing. But there's other things that boys have to do. They have to make decisions when they're camping, and the vision is beautiful sunny days, and being by a nice pond, and then they go camping and it's freezing rain, and the wind is blowing at 30 degrees. It's not quite so easy, and so they will the scouting program throws adversity at boys, and when they overcome it, it builds their character. Probably the example that's coming to mind right now is that one of the facilities of the Boy Scouts of America is called Philmont, and it's out in the southern Rocky Mountains in New Mexico. It's 137,000 acres, and boys go on 10-day backpacking trips. And 10 days on the trail for a 14-year-old is a long time. And usually, what do they learn there? They learn things about not only taking care of themselves, watching out for the other people in their group, realizing that even though it's hard, the only way to get to the top of that mountain is to keep on hiking. And really, it's
great life lessons. That's
right.
Great.
It's really a mental and emotional challenge as much as it is a physical challenge.
Huh. Now, is there a medium age of entry, and for that matter, a medium age of exit in the Boy Scouts?
Well, in Cub Scouting, they can join the very first program is called Tiger Cubs. They can join that in first grade. Then usually they transition to Boy Scouting at the end of their 5th grade year, and they usually stay in Boy Scouting if they catch scouting, if you will, until they're 18, And if they've truly caught it, then they become a volunteer leader. And stay with
In
the
my
program.
parlance, what's the conversion ratio of kids that, and using your phrase, catch scouting and sustain through all those years?
Well, I was just actually looking at that figure this morning. Our retention rate in the council that I serve is about 74%.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So
Kudos to you guys for being able to do that. I think that's great.
it's a tribute. to
That
the people.
surprises me.
It's a tribute to the people who developed the program.
That's impressive. I would not have guessed that. So, with that said, though, and acknowledging earlier that I'm co-raising two daughters, and knowing their friends as well as I do, at least in some cases, what's the issue of technology? And when I say that, the video games, the handheld, the Wiis, if you guys, are there programs that have involved that technology, or are you telling these kids to leave that at the door, and that when they're walking into the wonderful world of scouting, that technology is just that, left behind?
Well, there's certainly a time and a place for technology. The new facility in West Virginia that I mentioned earlier the boys will get they will be issued J phones when they get to the summit. That's the place in West Virginia. And the programs that they're signing up for, whether it be zip lining or whitewater rafting, are going to come to them. Their schedule will come to them over their phone. We recruit kids to go to this facility by through the website. In fact, they've even been able to help design some of the facilities by going online, with 12 and 13-year-olds to contribute their thoughts of what they like and what they don't like
How
about
much fun is that?
Right.
But the Game Boys and all that stuff is, at the very least, stuffed in the backpack and is meant to stay there?
Well, hopefully the programs are captivating enough for themselves that the boys don't need the artificial entertainment of Game Boys and Wiis, but they are just having a great time rock climbing and doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, not to embarrass anybody, but a friend of mine whose name I won't mention shared with me recently that he really acknowledged his addiction to social media and staying connected to all this stuff. Are you guys running into any of that? I mean, that you're conscious of when kids are walking in the door, and there might be, I'm not sure if I should use this phrase, but I will anyway. There's a Jones going on that they don't want to leave the technology behind.
Oh yeah, we certainly work with our volunteer leaders, and we encourage them to have the boys leave the cell phones and the smartphones and their iPhones and all that kind of stuff behind, and usually they will. I mean, I remember many years ago I was running, and I thought this was almost a service. I was running a high adventure base up in the Adirondacks in New York State, and there was a leader who was fairly high up in a bank, and he was working on several things, and he was trying to bring a fax machine with him so that he could stay in touch with his bank while he was on this week-long wilderness canoe trip. And thankfully, I was able to tell him that there was no place he was going to be able to hook that up. He wasn't going to cross any civilization. And I just thought, this person really needs a break from civilization.
Say that again. The guy was bringing a fax machine on a canoe trip
in the hopes that the route would cross places where he could stay in touch with his bank, as he was working on some fairly high-level projects. So,
and how many years ago was this?
That was in the late 1980s, I believe.
Well, at that time, fax was one of the leading edges of technology.
Yes.
I mean, it really was.
Yeah.
I still remember us getting our first fax machine and thinking we were the cat's meow in our industry to actually have something like that come through. So he stuffed that in his backpack, man. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yep. But anyways, it didn't work for him, which was probably the best thing.
And then he had to carry it around. Yeah, our chat room is saying, "What's a fax?" Yeah,
are they really?
Yeah, it's basically email with an automatic print feature. is really all a fax machine is.
There you go. There you go. Well, speaking of that chat room, do any of them, besides wondering what a fax is, have any questions for our guest this evening? And again, remind you that with us tonight is Kevin Bishop, who's a Scout executive with the Housatonic Council, part of the Boy Scouts of America here in Connecticut. So any questions from the boys and girls in the chat room?
Yes, one is calling in right now. Yes, I imagine it was a big fax machine. One of our people why did they have to carry a fax? How big was it? Yeah, apparently they stuffed it in their sack. So,
well, it was a canoe trip, so it was just in the canoe.
It was just in the canoe, which is always great. You know, it's water soluble, so that's fine. And no, I think that kind of stuff is great. I mean, I remember one of the most rewarding things, and I was not I was a Cub Scout. I was never a Boy Scout, but I made it to Weeblo. We will be loyal Scouts. But one of the great things that I did was this Outward Bound stuff, which gave similar stuff, and I think it was about 10 days on the Potomac. And that was just a terrific experience because you really get, you're out there, you're in elements that are not just walking around, but, things get wet and you have to really take care of things. It makes you very diligent about what needs to be packed up, how it needs to be packed up. You have to pay attention to details like that. Otherwise, you may not have milk for the rest of the trip or, something like that. Or, you might have to go a day and a half without water before you can, stop somewhere and find another well. So that kind of stuff I really think is terrific. What about guys like me that maybe in their late 20s, late 30s, early 40s, who want to get involved because now we're having kids, but we weren't necessarily Eagle Scouts or Boy Scouts. Can we get involved?
Absolutely. We're always looking for people to be involved, and there's opportunities for people to be involved and to serve scouting, whether or not if they want to work directly with children. There are other people that believe in scouting but don't want to work with children. Well, we need people to help us, operate the business side of scouting as well. But if people are interested, the easiest thing for them to do would simply Google Boy Scouts in the town that they're in.
Right.
And that will give them the information. Or there is a national website called beascout.org. And
that's beascout.org.
Right.
Okay.
And that will ask them to identify their zip code, and the local contact information will come up.
That's a great question, Brian.
One of the reasons that I love helping in the Coast Guard is similar to the mission with you guys is to keep to build people who are safety conscious, good folks, and really get out a lot of education to the public. Is there any kind of correlation between what maybe the Coast Guard Auxiliary, Coast Guard Reserve can do for the Boy Scouts in Connecticut? We have this huge thing called the Coast Guard Academy here. I don't know of any formal relationship. Maybe I can be the liaison between the two.
Well, sure. There's the Coast Guard Academy has been supportive of scouting and frequently have hosted our annual Eagle Scout recognition gatherings.
Terrific.
And in addition, there is one of the less known programs in scouting is Sea Scouting, and there are some Sea Scout ships.
Wow.
Yes,
And
that's right. In fact, yes. Okay, I remember about the Sea Scouts now.
And in fact, the Sea Scout group out of the New London area recently sailed down to New York City.
Wow.
For a
you know who
in
runs
the summer.
a good? I had forgotten all about this, but one of my fellow coasties, David Theody, is big involved with the Sea Scouts, and great sailor. Served on the USS Bark Eagle, which is that really big wooden tall ship that the Coast Guard kind of puts out there with the several masts,
Yep,
and it's
okay.
100 feet high and all that kind of stuff, stationed down there. And no, he loves that kind of stuff. So that would be neat. I wonder about more educational things. Like I remember there being, you had to go through. I'm trying to remember back in the Cub Scouts years ago. There were certain things you had to do. It was almost like qualifying, that you had to like do a science experiment and, from start to finish and say what the heck you did. And then did you get a badge or something? I don't remember what you got. But are there still like the merit badges, and have they evolved beyond maybe going into the technology side? They want folks to learn how to build a website or how to do something
Another good question.
technologically savvy. Build an engine or something like
Right.
that.
Absolutely. One of the newer merit badges in scouting is robotics. But in recent years, we've also added entrepreneurship, and even as hobbies evolve, climbing for kids
Right.
who are into rock climbing has become officially sanctioned as a merit badge, and scout camps are now allowing personal watercraft and things like
very
that
cool,
to do. But I think one of the good examples of merit badges, and some people may have heard this story, but it's a scout who took photography merit badge from his merit badge counselor, and by the time he was done with the merit badge, the counselor introduced him to how to use a movie camera, and that scout was Steven Spielberg, who credits scouting with introducing him
it's funny.
to.
I heard that somewhere else before.
Yeah,
That's great.
I think the second Indiana Jones movie has a scout at the start of it. In fact, I'm sure it does. I believe it's the second one, and that's one of the tributes to scouting and the impact it had on his life. In fact, he was the one that helped introduce cinematography merit badge.
Wow, boy, oh boy, we're in good company.
That's very cool.
So we're running out of time here. Again, I'm going to remind you folks that we have Kevin Bishop with us this evening, Scout Executive at the Housatonic Counsel, Boy Scouts of America here in Connecticut. What do you see as the big challenge for not only your council, but the Boy Scouts of America, in the next 5 years?
Scouting works when people want enrichment for their children. And if families' primary focus is just, paying the bills, keeping the lights on, and things like that, then they have to deal with that. It's important that that families be able to be in a position to participate in something like scouting. That's one of the challenges that we have, and our society is changing, and it's important that our leadership look more like the communities that we're serving. So we're constantly trying to reach out to make sure that our executive boards and our council staffs are as diverse as the population itself.
Now, you shared with me earlier, Kevin, and thank you for answering that question the way you just did. You shared with me earlier that the registration fee to become a scout is $15. Do you think that that's pretty common knowledge? Because that can't really be a barrier of entry for most families. I think the vast majority of families out there would be able to comfortably afford the $15 to get their son involved. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, absolutely. And that fee is basically to support the national organization and program development. There's funding available for people who may not be able to afford it.
That's good to know.
Is there any sponsor a scout thing? Like if someone doesn't have a son or daughter, but they like the Boy Scouts, can we send you money to sponsor a scout?
Absolutely. We have many people that do that.
Great idea.
Another great idea. Brian, thank you so much. Kevin, it was great to have you here. Hopefully this will help.
My pleasure.
Again, folks, if you're looking to find out more about the Scouts, you can Google Boy Scouts of America and the town that you're in, or beascout.org.
Exactly.
All right, Kevin, thanks. Take care.
Thank you very much.
I will see you again.
All right.
Fully operational. Fully engaged. On the horn. Hartford. onthehorn.com.